Hi class, in trying to understand the first modern humans, let's move to the Paleolithic Era, or a time of hunters and gatherers, also known as the Stone Age. And it's a way of life that was dominated by following large mammals like mastodons. Where Homo sapiens show up, pollution appears and large animals disappear. The San hunters in South Africa are a present-day hunter and gathering society, and they still live this precarious way of life. Typically, hunting and gathering would collect enough food in 3 hours to last for the day. It was and is a highly egalitarian society. Women at least have equal status for sure, and a matrilineal type society emerges. Class, can you think of societies that still live as hunting and gathering today? Well, I can think of tribes in the Amazon, maybe the Philippine Islands, along with a tribe I'm familiar with in the Bay of Bengal off the coast of India. But as we know, very few are left, and they're disappearing as we speak. And this is a closer view of the San hunters and gatherers in Africa. They still live this way, but of course, again, it's dying out. One thing I do want you to think about on the hunting and gathering. This was a way of life that most humans lived with for a millennial. So how did we make it out of Africa and into like the Americas? We crossed ice and land bridges, and there was some migration by boat, and we made our way out of Africa and throughout Europe. And as the bridges melted or were covered in water, think about this, the Americas will be cut off from the rest of the world. But by 13,000 BCE, evidence is suggesting modern man was on every part of the inhabitable world. And that number could be 14,000 BCE. So, it changes. And I will say that date is constantly in motion. And new sites are discovered, and we learn how to date more accurately these different discoveries. But take a look at this map, and you can see the spread of the different hominids and then modern man. So as I said, modern man lived during the Paleolithic Era, or the Old Stone Age, and thankfully, they often created and started leaving behind art in many caves throughout the world. Class, I've pulled in links to your chapter module so you can virtually tour these caves, and they're fabulous. I encourage you to take the time to do that. The art in these caves were usually abstract symbols, pictures of large game, handprints maybe, but very few depictions of humans. There was some, but not many. And their meaning is unclear, but why do any of us create art or leave drawings behind? Some scholars believe that some of this art is the work of a shaman. Those were the traditional healers of a tribe and believed in harmony with the world. And maybe they created some of the work in religious rituals or as a way to separate themselves from nature. Other items appeared during this time. Flutes have been found. I'll show you a picture of one in just a minute. You can go to YouTube and listen to someone play these old flutes that were found. Venus statues have also been found, and these have become sort of an iconic image of prehistory. It's a woman portrayed with exaggerated attributes that are not very flattering, found all over the world, really, but mostly in Europe or Eurasia. And they're typically a soft stone carving of bone or ivory or clay. And again, thought to be maybe a religious type figure, or maybe having to do with fertility. But the important point, class, is now we see one of the main themes of history is emerging, and that's with religion or art and ritual acts. This is one of the more famous Venus statues, the Willendorf Venus, and I thought she went real well with our guy there. They're only about 6 inches. It was discovered in Austria, but it dates back 25,000 years ago. And it's really one of the earliest representations of a female figure in one of these Venus statues found in Europe. There's this emphasis on a woman's breast and reproductive organs, and the presence of red ochre dye suggests that the makers, whoever made this, is concerned with a woman's fertility and procreative functions. Here's the flute, one of the flutes. In 2008, archaeologists discovered flutes in Germany, and they date back to 42,000 to 43,000 years ago. So take a listen to someone playing these flutes on YouTube if you want to. And I also wanted to share a few photos from the art caves that have been discovered. Again, links are provided for you, but they're really fabulous. This is from Lascaux Cave. This is a bison from a cave in northern Spain, and it has shocked scholars who didn't believe that the earliest modern humans would be capable of such artistic expression. And then when we dated them, everybody was astounded. This is horses, which is just really incredible. And as soon as their first appearances in Western Europe, people, again, were just, amazed at the brilliant details that were depicted in these drawings. But there's just miles and miles of these drawings in these caves. And this image uses something interesting called a doubling effect, drawing additional hindquarters and legs for the animal to give the bison the appearance of motion and speed. And then this is a Paleolithic bone carving from about the same time as these cave drawings. And it depicts, I think, capture of wild animals and that kind of thing. So class, another way that the modern man is set apart is going to be language, and it's an evolutionary milestone. In simpler terms, it is words arranged in a particular sequence that conveys meaning. You need a large brain, you need a complex cognitive organization, and language thus sets off humans from other animals. Complex language arose about 50,000 years ago, and with language, humans could accumulate bodies of knowledge and transmit them across time. And as humans spread across the globe, 19 separate language families will emerge. Who knows what neo means? Neo means new. And during the Neolithic era, we're going to see at least 5 separate locations over a 5,000-year period where humans are going to learn to cultivate wild grasses and cereals and domesticate wild animals. And this is sort of an agricultural revolution. Did it last a long time? Yes. We think of a revolution as a quick stop and start. This went on for 5,000 years, and it's going to lead to a vast population explosion. Agriculture production will first appear in the Fertile Crescent starting about 9,000 BCE. And though the process was slow, farmers and herders are going to domesticate a variety of plants and animals over time, and a process that's going to lead to the rise of larger scale permanent settlements and civilization as we know it today. Gradually, this knowledge about the domestication of plants and animals is going to be accumulated and spread, and there's really just ideal environmental conditions in the area to allow humans to experiment with new ways of organizing themselves and establishing permanent settlements. Settled communities class will change everything, and we'll talk in much more detail about that later. So the Fertile Crescent, it's what we call the first place of rich soils and regular rains and early irrigation attempts. And again, by 9,000 BCE, humans are there selecting and storing seeds and sowing seeds in beds and feeding a larger population. But as this map indicates, there's attempts also to control plants and animals in North America, South America, Africa, in China. And they're all trying to do the same thing about the same time. Different things, but doing about the same thing at the same time. This is a closer look at the area starting about 8,000 years ago, and that darker shade is where it starts. So this is the first Fertile Crescent in the dark shade. And then as it lightens up, and it's going to, about 6,000 years, it will move into right between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. You can see that as well. And I wanted to pull up a map from a modern day map perspective so you can see exactly where it is. Turkey, Egypt, Iraq, north of Saudi Arabia. So you see where we're at. And, obviously it was very rich and fertile then, a lot more so than today. Class, beer. It's one of the world's oldest prepared drinks. And there's evidence that beer was produced during a Neolithic period beginning around 8000 BCE. The early chemical evidence of beer dates back to 3500 BCE from Western Iran. Beer is recorded in the written histories, ancient written histories of Iraq and Egypt. There's been poems written to it, songs, hymns, and it's thought to be instrumental in the formations of civilization because 5,000 years ago, workers in the city of Uruk, that we'll talk about, in modern-day Iraq were paid in daily rations of beer. Same with building of the pyramids a little later. No beer, no pyramids. And all of these early civilizations have their own version of beer or alcohol. There's a documentary you can watch online, How Beer Saved the World, that takes a look at how beer influenced major events in human history. Of course, this is the former President Obama enjoying a glass. And the other photo is one of my favorites. It shows World War I soldiers returning to the U.S. only to find out we had passed prohibition. No beer, and they wanted their beer. Class, I'm going to pick back up with a short lecture on what some of these early Neolithic settlements will look like. As always, keep in touch.